welcome to this joint work session of the Eugene City Council and the Eugene Planning Commission. And I'm delighted to see the Planning Commission members all in the same virtual room with us. So I now call this May 15th, 2024 City Council work session to order.
All right, thank you and good afternoon. My name is Tiffany Edwards and I'm the chair of the Eugene Planning Commission, and I now call the May 15th, 2024 Eugene Planning Commission work session to order.
I want to thank you all for joining us in this virtual meeting format for work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment. Those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials web page. Thank you again for joining us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager for opening remarks.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Planning Commission. It's been a while since we've had a joint meeting, and I always enjoy these where we're all getting the same information at the same time. So we're here today to talk about urban growth strategies, which I know is high priority for most as we think about how we grow and develop and provide housing and jobs and all the things. So I think Alyssa may be kicking us off with a presentation, and then we'll have plenty of time for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, and Planning Commission. My name is Alyssa Hunter, and I am the City's Planning Director. We do have a PowerPoint presentation that Heather is going to pull up for us. And while she does that, I'll just mention that, yes, it's been a little while since you all have had a joint meeting. The last one was in October of 2021. Wow. And, oh, there we go. And that was when we were kicking off the Middle Housing Code Amendment project. And we thought it was a good time to host another joint meeting as we are kicking off another high priority, big, important project, the Urban Growth Strategies project. And Heather, you can advance the slide. All right, so today I'm going to start off with a high-level overview of the Planning Division's work plan, and that should just give you some context of what we're working on. The bulk or the focus of the meeting is really going to be on the Urban Growth Strategies project, and the goal is to ground both bodies in what this project is and what you can expect over the next several years. And then we'll end with plenty of time for questions and discussion. Next. All right, so I'm going to start off with the Planning Division's work plan for the next couple of years, and it really, no surprise, is a mixture of City Council directed work or meeting state requirements, or some of our projects are actually both. Next. The Planning Division is comprised of 17 staff, and that includes a number of planners. We have admin staff. We also have GIS and urban design specialists, and we all work collaboratively on a wide range of projects, everything from routine land use applications all the way up to some of these really high priority, complex projects. And I would say that they're, regardless of their routine or high priority, they're all very important for moving forward the goals of our community. Just as a refresher, some of the big projects that this team has worked on over the last couple of years includes establishing the growth monitoring program, the adoption of urban reserves, the adoption of the Willamette Greenway Code Amendments related to housing, adoption of the Middle Housing Code Amendments twice, and most recently the River Road Santa Clara Neighborhood Plan and Code Amendments. This is a screenshot of something that's actually an attachment in your packet, and it's a high-level summary of our work plan for the next couple of years. Many of these things are going to continue beyond 2025, but we thought we'd keep it simple for you. And our work is generally can fall into two categories. The first is under land use, and that is what we also refer to as current or short-range planning, and then our community and planning design team, and that's more long range. And then additionally, folks from both teams work on a variety of collaborative collaborative efforts that implement the city's goals related to housing, climate, transportation, and economic development. One example of that would be the housing implementation pipeline, which I know you're all really familiar with. Next. In terms of land use projects, the land use team is really their bread and butter. What they do is they implement the land use code and the city's land use plans. And the bulk of their work is really around reviewing land use applications for compliance with the city's code and plans. And these are, things such as, something as minor as a property line adjustment or a subdivision, or all the way up to zone changes, annexations, conditional use permits. They also have some ongoing programs, including the historic preservation program, keeping the code maintained on an annual basis. There's always legislative work to be tracking in coordination with the state. And then this year they'll be embarking on an update to the land use application fees, as we haven't done that for over a dozen years. Most of this work does not typically reach the Planning Commission or City Council. There are some occasional land use applications that do make it up, including some code amendments or plan amendments that go through public hearings process through Planning Commission and City Council. And then, I think Council is well familiar with the annexations that come to you on a pretty routine basis. Next. So the community planning and design team, they also have a number of ongoing programs, and that includes community engagement, includes urban design with such things as the pre-approved ADU plans. I mentioned the growth monitoring program, and that has an annual reporting component. Other projects have included the River Road Santa Clara, as I mentioned, and today's focus is really on the urban growth strategies project, which is a whole suite of work that we're going to get into a whole lot more detail about next. You might be wondering, what is urban growth strategies? And as I said, that's what we're really going to dive in today. But I think if you can just think of it at a higher level, it's our planning work for jobs and housing for the next 20 years. So do we have enough land inside the urban growth boundary to accommodate our needs for housing and jobs for the next 20 years? How can we use that land more efficiently? What kind of tools and policies and actions do we need to take? Or do we also need to expand the urban growth boundary? So for those of you who are around for the Envision Eugene and the urban growth boundary adoption in 2017, this work will build on that planning and community engagement from that work, and there will be a lot of similarities. You're going to see a lot of similar land studies, although I think we have a lot better information now because of our growth monitoring program. And there has also been some changes to state law that will make some of the studies a little bit different. But what we'll be doing is a number of studies to look at the land availability inside the urban growth boundary. There will be updates to cities' adopted plans and regulations. And again, we'll be evaluating whether or not there's a need to expand the urban growth boundary for our future needs. And again, we're going to go through that in more detail now. We have 3 of the project managers who are working on this, are going to walk through some different components and timelines, starting with Heather O'Donnell, who I'll pass it over to.
Thanks, Alyssa. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Heather O'Donnell. I am a senior planner with the Community Planning and Design team, and I'll kick off the Urban Growth Strategies overview. As Alyssa mentioned, there's a bunch of us that are working on this, but only 3 of us are presenting on it today. So we'll cover project background, components, engagement activities, and next steps. And then at the end, we should have plenty of time for questions and general discussion. Advance, there we go. So I'm going to start at the 30,000 foot level on why do we plan for growth, a bit of a refresher. So Eugene, like all cities in Oregon, is required to plan for growth through Oregon's unique statewide planning program. The urban growth boundary, or UGB, is the cornerstone of land use planning in our state. It is the geographic boundary that separates urban uses from rural uses, with the aim of protecting surrounding farm and forest lands, while also making sure communities have enough space for the needs of a growing urban population to live, work, and play. So it's essentially how far out the city can grow. Every city in Oregon is required to have an urban growth boundary that contains enough land for housing, employment, parks, infrastructure, and schools for the next 20 years of projected population and job growth. A city's comprehensive plan establishes the policies to guide growth within the city's UGB. Having enough land within our urban growth boundary allows us to prepare for projected population growth and also to plan for housing at price ranges and rent levels affordable to a variety of income levels, and to plan for jobs so that businesses can sustain and increase living wage jobs in our community. We'll talk more about these steps related to this project, but generally, urban growth planning includes answering what is Eugene's need or demand for housing and jobs for the next 20 years? How much available land does Eugene have to accommodate that new need or demand for housing and jobs? And if the need is greater than the available land, are there steps Eugene can take to allow for more housing and jobs within the current urban growth boundary? And that's on the slide as land use efficiency measures. And if the need is still greater than the available land, determining the size and location to expand Eugene's urban growth boundary. To guide this work, the Urban Growth Strategies Project has established 6 goals, which I'll read on the next 2 slides. They are to advance Eugene's vision for a community where people at all income levels can afford to live, work, shop, and play, facilitate the production of more housing, and move Eugene towards more fair and equitable housing outcomes, support data-informed policy decisions about urban area growth, including when to expand the urban growth boundary, provide meaningful opportunities for community members to inform how Eugene plans for growth, center the voices and experiences of people from underserved communities in decision-making, and comply, the last one, always fun, comply with relevant state statutes and administrative rules, also important. So this suite of work that we're talking about today advances many of City Council's priorities. So for example, completing the Envision Eugene Comprehensive Plan has been a priority for several years since we completed and adopted the first chapters in 2017. As directed by the comprehensive plan, we established a growth monitoring program. So we've been monitoring our land supply and development trends and would already be planning on updating our urban growth urban growth planning analysis. The City Council also approved the Housing Implementation Pipeline, the HIP, a 5-year internal work plan to advance key housing priorities across city teams. The HIP articulates the city's commitment to supporting more housing production across the housing continuum, and it identifies several of the urban growth strategies components as priority projects. Urban growth strategies also includes projects that will advance the Climate Action Plan 2.0 actions to reduce emissions from transportation through compact development strategies. And much of the urban growth strategies work is supported by the city's current strategic plan. This project will advance several what's called urgent community needs as established by the City Council goal for sustainable and accountable development, including goals for advancing climate action, stabilizing the cost of housing, increasing the vitality downtown, and improving the business environment, wages, and new jobs. All of this work is guided by relevant state statutes and administrative rules related to Oregon's statewide land use planning program. In addition, there are several recent state mandates that require Eugene to update our urban growth boundary and our housing planning. These include that housing planning is now required to be completed every 8 years. And in 2023 legislative session, House Bill 2001, known as the Oregon Housing Needs Analysis, or ONA, directed the Department of Land Conservation and Development to develop rules to increase housing production, affordability, and choice. 2 packages of forthcoming rules will inform various components of this work. A key piece of the ONA is a new methodology to plan for a more complete picture of a city's housing needs. It starts with identifying housing needs for the entire state and then allocating those needs to each city's UGB. Then, whereas the current rules plan for new housing based only on projected population growth, which is the last bullet here, the new method adds in housing needed to address previous years of underproduction, people experiencing homelessness, and demographic changes. So think of housing needs changing as the population ages over the next 20 years. Based on the draft forecast numbers, in total, Eugene's housing need is likely to be significantly higher than the amount we planned for last time. However, the final numbers won't be available until January of 2025. Additionally, as you are aware, in 2022, the state adopted rules establishing the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities Program, or CFEC. Urban growth strategies will include designation of climate-friendly areas, which is a component of CFEC implementation, as one of several policies to encourage more efficient use of land in the UGB, and will include engagement-focused analysis. New policies in the Eugene Comprehensive Plan will also implement and comply with CFEC requirements. There are 3 phases of the Urban Growth Strategies project that we'll walk through. First, the technical phase is focused on understanding our land needs for different urban uses, including, as we mentioned before, jobs, housing, and other public facilities like parks, schools, and utility infrastructure. This includes assessing Eugene's needs and the land supply through a series of technical analysis, which you'll be happy to hear I am not going into detail about today. But at a high level, it will include determining how much land is needed for each of those urban uses for the next 20 years, and then determining how much available land Eugene has to accommodate those needs. And that's called a buildable lands inventory. And now I'm going to stop talking and hand it over to Leah.
Excellent. Thank you, Heather. Good afternoon, counselors and commissioners. My name is Leah Rausch, and I am also a senior planner in community planning and design. Another phase of this work is to identify and document our community's needs and priorities for housing. So Heather mentioned the housing capacity analysis, and allocations of needed housing from the ONA will give us our quantitative need, but it'll also be essential for us to contextualize that need. What types of housing people will need, how households will change over time given an aging population, the unique needs of people with disabilities and other underserved communities, and more. The Housing Production Strategy, or HPS, is a state-required document that summarizes and prioritizes actions to address our contextualized local housing need and increase housing production, affordability, and choice. After adoption, which we've proposed for 2026, the Housing Production Strategy will be an 8-year adopted city work plan. In the shorter term, we'll identify a handful of tools to adopt right away, our land use efficiency measures. So these are tools that use residential and employment lands more efficiently, allowing or encouraging more housing or jobs on lands than previously expected. We know that we'll be using climate-friendly areas designation as one of our efficiency measures. You've heard about climate-friendly areas before as a part of the climate-friendly and equitable communities rules implementation. These are designated areas where people can meet their daily needs without relying on a car. They are more dense, mixed-use areas with good biking, walking, and transit connectivity, and a higher density of homes, jobs, and services. To support the selection of climate-friendly areas, we're working with a consultant team on a redevelopment analysis of some study areas. This analysis will help us to understand higher density residential and mixed-use development and redevelopment potential, and may also inform other efficiency measures. One of the efforts that's kind of underway right now is the development of our housing production strategy. Once adopted, as I said, this will be an 8-year adopted action plan for meeting our unmet housing needs across a variety of income levels, as well as for both renters and homeowners. The HPS will build on an immense amount of work that the city has already undertaken through the HIP and other housing initiatives. The HPS could include a wide range of actions, as shown in the graphic on the slide, including things like zoning and land use code changes to reduce regulatory barriers, new investments in affordable housing, or investigating tax exemptions or other financial incentives to lower the cost of development. I think one challenge and opportunity that Eugene has compared to other cities across the state is that we're already doing a lot. The HPS is an opportunity for us to demonstrate to the state how much work we're doing to address our unmet housing needs, including around housing production, preservation of existing affordable housing, and protection of vulnerable community members from displacement. There are also some specific requirements within the housing production strategy to advance more fair and equitable housing outcomes. We'll need to point back to our community engagement results to demonstrate how our selected actions will better support outcomes for underserved communities. With that, I will hand it off to Rebecca to talk about the third phase of this work.
Thank you, Leah, and thank you, Mayor Vinnis, City Council, and Planning Commissioners. My name is Rebecca Gershow. I'm also a city senior planner in community planning and design. And this afternoon, I'm going to talk about the policy outcomes from the technical analysis and the housing work that Heather and Leah have described. We will be moving these forward primarily through the next phase of the Envision Eugene Comprehensive Plan. It's our Eugene-specific comprehensive plan, and it will implement the community vision that's outlined in Envision Eugene, and it'll be supported by new community input over the next few years. Updates to the plan will include policies that are going to be housed primarily in these 5 new chapters shown on our timeline here. So housing, community development, community health, community engagement, and public facilities. Another key component of the comprehensive plan and a major work item is the Eugene-specific comprehensive plan map. This is a parcel-specific land use designation map, and it'll clarify and define land use designations and policies for the land within Eugene's urban growth boundary. It will be replacing the Metro Plan diagram for Eugene. Finally, there will be other policy changes necessary to implement the outcomes of our urban growth strategies work, including amendments to the Eugene Land Use Code, the Metro Plan, the Transportation System Plan, and others as needed. All of this work, as you can see here, is slated for adoption in 2026. So on the next slide, this is the full suite of urban growth strategies components that we've been talking about together in the project timeline that's included in your packet as attachment D. There's a lot here, most of which we've covered, but there are a few pieces that we haven't. Down near the bottom, you can see this other project components and growth monitoring and annual reports sections. So as you can see, and you'll be hearing more about in a few slides, community engagement on this project has already begun. And growth monitoring as well is an ongoing project, which you already know about, and you already know that it's really critical to our work. Growth monitoring provides data that we use in a wide variety of ways, including when we calculate how much development capacity to assume in our future analysis. So ultimately, this urban growth strategy work will result in an evaluation, as Heather mentioned, of whether Eugene's UGB will be needed to be expanded to meet our land needs over the next 20 years. If after completing the land inventories and efficiency measures, we find that we do need to expand, we'll look to the nearby land in our urban reserves to determine where we'll expand and for what uses. This UGB expansion analysis would also include significant community engagement, and it would build on the city's work that was already undertaken to adopt urban reserves in 2022. So this is a quick summary of the adoption package and process. As you saw in the timeline, all these components, other than the UGB expansion piece, are lining up for concurrent adoption in 2026. We expect that the adoption package will look very similar to the city's work in 2017 to adopt parts of the Eugene Comprehensive Plan and land use studies then. It'll also include some adjustments to the land use code and the Metro Plan, which I mentioned, to reflect and formally adopt policies and pieces of this work. We also expect the housing production strategy to be adopted concurrently as a standalone document. There's a lot of pieces that will be put together in this 2026 adoption package. Then the second adoption package, which we're estimating at this point for 2029, will include a UGB expansion if there is a need to expand, and a transportation system plan update that will be led by our transportation planning folks. As with all of our legislative adoption processes, we'll convene several work sessions and hearings with the Planning Commission and City Council. And components of this work will also be co-adopted with the county, which will require concurrent processes with their Planning Commission and their Board of Commissioners. And we're going to start meeting with them next week. And now I'm going to turn it back to Leah to talk a little bit more about public engagement.
Thank you, Rebecca. And we just have a couple more slides for you all, and then we'll move to discussion and questions. So we're as Rebecca said, we're in the early stages of a coordinated community engagement effort that will inform all of the components of urban growth strategies. The community engagement plan, as approved by the Planning Commission, outlines a wide range of engagement activities from individual interviews to citywide events. We've already hosted events with a working group of housing sector experts, conversations with community members of color, and have presented to various city boards and commissions on the project. There's a list of recent engagement activities in your AIS. Coming up next, we have a community open house on June 5th at the Farmers Market Pavilion. This is an opportunity for community members to share their thoughts on needs and priorities for housing, future urban growth, and other ongoing city projects with City of Eugene staff. We expect participation from other city divisions, including community development and the sustainability program, who are leading concurrent housing-related work. Through the summer and fall, we'll continue community engagement work specifically to inform housing needs and priorities, as well as to get feedback on policy concepts for designating mixed-use centers and climate-friendly areas. We'll bring a summary of all of our community engagement from 2024 to you all this fall. Through the end of this year, we'll come back to both the City Council and Planning Commission on various components of this work. The Planning Commission will have work sessions on the housing production strategy, redevelopment analysis, climate-friendly areas, and more. The only decision to be made in 2024 is on climate-friendly areas. We'll be asking City Council for direction on climate-friendly areas to designate before the end of this year. Planning Commission will be asked to make a recommendation incorporating the results of the redevelopment analysis, other technical analysis, and of course, community engagement. So I'll wrap things up here, but there's much more information available on the project webpage and our Engage Eugene page. We're also sending out monthly updates in the Eugene Planning newsletter, which folks can subscribe to using the QR code on the slide. With that, we'll stop the presentation and I'll hand it back to the mayor for questions and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a very clear outline of a lot of issues, but it actually helped me hold some of it better in my head. So thank you for that. So now we're going to open it up. We'll alternate counselors with planning commission members. We'll start out with 3-minute rounds, and I'll just say that if the conversation runs long, the second rounds, I'm going to just cut them in half to 1.5 minutes so that we can sort of keep the conversation going. So with that, are wondering if there are any counselors who have questions or comments that they want to bring to the table. Councilor Groves, Randy.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think whenever we get information on our buildable lands inventory in UGB, it's really important. What percentage of our buildable lands inventory is in the hills versus on the flatlands?
That's squarely in my area, and I was not ready to throw out that percentage. It's not quite half and half, but I want to say it's like 40%, and we can follow up with the percentage from, we did that analysis, I think, in the 2021 report, so it's a couple years old now, but I think it's about 40%.
So 40% of our residential buildable lands is in the hills. I'm assuming you're separating out commercial and industrial or residential.
Yep, I figured that was what you were referring to. And when I say in the hills, I say, I mean over 5% slope. So there are some other, some smaller areas that are not in the South Hills that are over 5% slope, but that's what I'm referring to.
The slope is the point I'm trying to get to, because it's hard to build affordable housing on any grade. I mean, that's just economics of construction. Another question I have is about our employer lands. Over the last couple of years, Councilor Greg Evans and I have been trying to work in West Eugene to bring in manufacturing. And we actually had several solar panel manufacturers who were interested to the point of starting to look for property. And they could not find large enough units of land that was available to construct their manufacturing on. And in many cases, they're looking for like 100-acre parcels, and they're just really aren't any. I mean, Hynix, the former Hynix plant now owned by Stratacache, has 2 100-acre parcels, but I know they're trying to hold back at least one of those for their own growth in the future. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, and someone else, Terry or Alyssa, you may want to jump in on this, but we did expand the urban growth boundary in the Clear Lake Road area last time. That area still is not served, and so once we have funding to serve that area, then and it gets served, then that will open up land that is larger parcels for industrial type development. I believe that there has been some there definitely has been coordination within city departments on trying to see how that can happen.
Okay, let's take the Clear Lake industrial area that's targeted. You know, first of all, it's not shovel ready, and these manufacturers are coming in with cash looking for shovel-ready property. But number 2, how many of those parcels in the Clear Lake Road development are 100 acres or more?
We can follow up with some numbers for you, Councilor Groves. I would just add that I think there's one, but I'll follow up with you. And that not only Clear Lake, but the study that we're doing will take a comprehensive look at our needs going forward 20 years. So we're not limited to only thinking about how to get Clear Lake served, but we're taking a fresh look at our needs into the future.
Well, I'm very grateful to hear that because I personally think we do need to take a fresh look. And I'm not being critical of the work you've done. I think you've done great work, but I really think we need to revisit the whole piece. You know, as we try to provide more affordable housing, I'll remind us all that the other half of affordable housing are living wage jobs. And, you know, taking advantage of some of our CTE training in our high schools and community colleges. These are things that are going to help make a better, more well-rounded community. Plus, a big part of the future of addressing some of our financial shortfalls are bringing in more commercial development that fits within, you know, Eugene-friendly type manufacturing or commercial industrial. So I really think we need to take a look at this, and I'm going to be watching that closely because I'm very interested in it. And I've seen excitement of some of these businesses that have come in and taken a look at us, but they move on. One large manufacturer is looking in St. Helens right now because they couldn't find the space here in Eugene. And I see my time is dropping down, so thank you very much. I may need a second round.
All right. Mayor, thanks. I'll chime in. And I want to encourage, if any of the Planning Commission have comments or questions, please raise your hand and then we'll call on you alternately. But for now, I'm just going to put myself in the queue because I want to follow up on a question based on Councilor Grove's comments. I'm curious if, you know, we're heavily engaged in a lot of preparing for business retention and expansion and recruitment efforts within my organization. And I am curious about whether or not we have any kind of strategies or plan to have strategies to respond specifically to situations just as Councilor Grove suggested, whether it's a rezoning or an expansion based on an actual inquiry or an actual need. And I can use an example. There's a bunch of land zoned for employment out near Chad Drive. And it's been expressed by, you know, multiple developers in conversations that if that was converted to C2 or something that was compatible, there is already housing in that area. And I'm curious if we are in a position as a city to respond to rezoning opportunities that way, or do we really kind of have to go through like a longer drawn out process to be able to respond to those? And so I'll let whoever has the answer maybe.
Yeah, I can jump in. So what I hear you saying rings a bell for me as a land use efficiency measure. And so as an example, and I think the properties you're talking about are zoned either E1 or E2, that's on our radar. We have been hearing that there are some fixes we could do with that zoning, even if it stayed as that zone. And then the next question would be rezoning. But either of those things would be land use efficiency measures. So just like we've been really focused right now on housing and figuring out housing production measures and efficiency measures for getting more housing, we will do a companion set of work for employment land. And so, you know, E1 and E2 is the example I can give you. We know through growth monitoring that we haven't seen the development in E1 and E2 that we projected to have by creating those zones. And so what's going on there? We need to look at that. So yes, there would definitely be a companion piece right now with the momentum we've had building on the climate friendly area study that was done and some timelines that the state has given us. We're trying to focus on housing, but we'll move right into employment strategies with this work.
Thanks, Heather. And I'll just follow up with one other question related to that, because I think it is an efficiency measure. Are there anything we're looking at in the way of annexation strategies to help facilitate? I know of several property owners that would be interested if they could, but because they are not congruently located within another property that's already in the city, they're in the UGB, but are we looking at all at that as part of an efficiency measure, or could we be ready to respond to a need a request as a potential.
Yeah, I can take that, Tiffany, and then Terry might have something to add. I know the City Council is taking up a work session on voluntary annexation in the near future. Some of the suggested strategies or actions to encourage more annexation could be perfect actions to go into our housing production strategy. So I think there's certainly an alignment. Exactly what those actions or strategies are, we aren't there quite yet, but I think it could fit into this larger picture.
Awesome. Okay. I'm done.
That was a great line of questioning, great set of answers. Thank you very much. Councilor Keating and then Councilor Clark.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for joining us, Planning Commission. And I have a question for our chair, but before I do, I want to say thank you to Rebecca for pointing out if we need to expand, not when we need to expand the urban growth boundary. I appreciate the framing, Rebecca in particular. Tiffany, I have a question about the overlap or marriage between Envision Eugene and Onward Eugene. In particular, if council is in communication with a potential partner who's encouraged by the prospect of relocating to Eugene, how do you envision that process playing out? And to whom whom do you suggest should be part of those initial conversations before a counselor just takes a step back and says, I've made the introduction, and go forth and do well and hopefully welcome to Eugene?
Councilor Keating, that's a really good question. I'm going to attempt to answer it, but in full disclosure, I think it might be a question either for Brittany Quickwarner or Dana Siebert in full, but because I'm actively involved, I think we have actively been looking at companies outside the area, as well as been approached by companies outside the area, and have conversations about some of the barriers. And it's a pretty standard pretty standard situation. I'll use an example. We have a middle housing builder that's over in Bend that would love to come to our market. And we've been in conversations about what is different there that, does our code allow for what they're doing there to happen in Eugene. And so it's kind of a process, and I've been playing the role of just trying to make some introductions and have solicit some professional advice to just figure out, and then identifying those barriers, and then figuring out what is the next steps if we were to try and free up that opportunity, whether it's an ordinance change, like a policy change that has to happen at council, whether it's something that could be done administratively. So I think it's kind of on a case-by-case basis, and that's how we handle it. But we certainly engage heavily with the city and the county whenever that opportunity is, we have one in our hands. And it does happen. It happens without even trying, but we're actually in a position where we want to be more proactive. But we want to be able to work with the tools that we have and find out, does that answer your question at all? Or because it's kind of case by case.
Right. No, it's very helpful. I appreciate the approach and the perspective.
Yeah.
My next question might drill down to a little more specific, and I've been champing at the bit and enthusiastic about the potential for a third urban renewal district that would head out 6th and 7th and or up Highway 99 as the gateway to our community coming off the airport into Eugene. What's the conversation, if any, been like among the Planning Commission members about such a prospect for the future of Eugene?
I don't know if staff wants to tackle that one, but I can just share briefly that from a policy perspective, just professionally, we've talked about other incentives specific to transit corridors, and 6th and 7th is certainly that, but maybe a similar type of, whether it's an urban renewal or it's a strategy for something similar to a MUPD that you could extend along corridors to encourage growth. And, I said this, you were there when I said this in a meeting last week, we have to make doing the right thing easier than doing the wrong thing. And so I think that, trying to pursue strategies that get us the outcomes that we want and to be able to make that easy. I think that's the conversation that's been had. And of course, kind of waiting to see where council's taking the conversation around an urban renewal district, or even something that's similar to a MUPD or another kind of multi-unit incentive that expands beyond the current boundaries. And I think that seems to be what there's been a lot of support in the business community around. But of course, mobilizing and getting that on all your agenda has been, but I wouldn't say that we've had any conversations at Planning Commission. But if staff wants to chime in and talk about anything, Leah, I see you unmuted.
Yeah. That's great, Commissioner Edwards. I will just build on what you've said, which is we are certainly looking at our transit corridors, inclusive of 6th and 7th and Highway 99, looking at some of the tools that we have on the table right now. So the redevelopment analysis I mentioned will be helping us to understand, what areas along the corridors and in our core commercial areas are kind of prime, have the right market and rents for more redevelopment. And then what are some of the tools that would encourage that? So inclusive of zoning changes around climate friendly areas designation, but also financial incentives that could look like a MUPD, it could look like something else. That analysis is underway right now, and we'll be bringing this results back to the Planning Commission at the end of the summer. So it certainly could lead us in that direction. I don't know if Terry or Alyssa would add anything more to that.
Okay, if that's resolved.
Mayor, how much, I can't see the timer. How much time do I have left?
You still have time. I thought you were done. Go for it.
No, I've one more question.
Yeah, 59.
One or two more questions. Okay, great. For walkable, thank you all for the feedback. And to encourage more walkable neighborhoods, it's my understanding there are no incentives for building commercial and then a modest residential on the way up. It certainly helps things pencil out, but is there anything council can do from a policy perspective to encourage a commercial on the bottom and a residential on the way up?
So I guess I'll just bring back the redevelopment analysis again. We're looking at a variety of kind of building prototypes that could be, higher densities of residential development at a different kind of story heights, different heights. We're also looking at mixed use buildings. So first floor commercial with residential on top, looking at the financial feasibility of those in different areas across the city. That is a difficult development type to make pencil, is really just what we hear from developers. So it comes down to what the potential rents are and making that kind of worth their time and energy. So we'll have a better sense of where those might work. And then again, what financial incentives could help get them across the finish line to make them more financially appealing for a developer.
Thank you, Leah. As long as no one else has anything, I'll close with this, Mayor. Piggybacking off what Councilor Gross said and what I've heard throughout this presentation about Eugene being a great place to live, work, and play, I would submit that it also needs to be a great place to live, work, play, and stay. And that means more affordable housing at all income levels, more housing at all income levels, including affordable housing, especially workforce housing. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you today, and thank you for joining us.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I'll turn it over to you, Tiffany.
Okay, great. I have Commissioner Lear in the queue.
I believe Commissioner Ramey was ahead of me.
Oh, I see him now. I'm sorry. Commissioner Ramey, you are up next. If you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourselves as well, since most of you haven't.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. My name is Chris Ramey. I live in Allen's Lancaster ward, and it's the number I can never remember. It might be 3, but I'm not sure. I had a couple of questions about, well, let's just start with the easy one. Transportation planning. For decades, we've been trying to coordinate land use and transportation planning, and how is transportation planning factoring into this work?
I can take a stab at that. On our timeline, you may have seen updates to the transportation system plan. They are included as part of the overall slate of work, and we're coordinating with them on particularly the climate-friendly and equitable communities requirements. So there are some updates that will land in transportation planning's area, and some that will land in our area through updates to the land use code. Any more detail you want to throw at that, Leah?
No, I think that's right. They're definitely have been involved and will be involved in the climate friendly areas designation piece. And we work with them on coordinating community engagement when it makes sense as well.
I'll just add, oh, sorry, you're going to add.
Well, you probably were going to say this, Rebecca, but we are coordinating in terms of our corridors and our compact development strategy. That is very closely tied with how we serve with transit, how we improve walking conditions and biking conditions. Those things are all kind of interrelated.
Okay, good. We've heard a little bit about what we need internally, or what we think is going to come up internally as we go through this process. And of course, it's the trifecta of housing, employment, and now I brought in parking into the mix. So all we're missing is open space, but I'm sure we'll get to that eventually. In the meantime, I'm wondering if staff has looked, not internally, but externally, across the planning communities and the planning world, to see if there are best practices. What's the new great thing that's coming our way that maybe we could engage somehow in this process? Sorry to catch you cold on that one.
I'll jump in because I think part of the answer is Oregon is leading the way. We've been leading work on tying equity to our housing, transportation, and growth management work. And so the CFEC legislation was pretty forward thinking in that way. A lot of the requirements for community engagement and working directly with underserved populations are setting best practice standards for much of the rest of the country. And then I would add that our housing legislation and housing work is addressing the housing crisis in a way that is comprehensive and trying to integrate a lot of legacy work that is 40 or 50 years old. So I would call that pioneering as well. But it's certainly taking best practices and housing crisis response from other states such as California. And I don't know if Leah or anybody else wants to jump in on that. I do feel like Oregon is leading in terms of equity, community engagement, and tying together transportation and land use.
Okay. Just lastly, congratulations to all of us for getting together. And with the lack of any local media coverage on practically anything, I often get my information from these kinds of gatherings. And today I learned about something called Onward Eugene, which is not only a clever name, but it sounds like maybe it's an effective program. So kudos to whoever is behind Onward Eugene. Carry forward and take us onward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor, very much. I have 2 subject matters to try and cover here, so I'll try and talk quickly. First, thanks to Chair Edwards for the comments and questions around annexation. There are several of us who've kind of been chomping at the bit for that conversation and goal setting, and maybe hopefully some movement and action on that subject matter. You may recall, even Chair Edwards, that we once had a state senator from this area who was able to get a piece of legislation passed at the state level, and I say this for the sake of staff and their work planning, that was required in order for us to get islanded properties appropriately annexed. And so if we only had a legislator or maybe a future legislator well-versed in this that could help us with that when the time comes, I think that would be awesome. And I suspect there may be one of us that has such knowledge and capacity for the future that I hope we can look to in that time, because that will be necessary for, I think, an effective effort at dealing with annexation in a better and more effective way locally. Second subject, Heather, 48%. This has been, since you brought it up to me a couple of years ago, this has been my number, and I'm very happy that the legislature passed some funds for us to do the utility work that we need to do. So a couple questions around that, if I could, and I can't see Heather. Oh, there she is right there. All right, excellent. Of the 48% of lands in our buildable supply that are essentially phantom inventory and unbuildable right now because of the lack of capacity with utilities, what will I spoke with Matt and Public Works Director here about how quickly, and he's hoping by next summer, some of this stuff, especially around Crow Road, can get served. My question is, what percentage of that 48% gets served with the monies we got from 1530 in the ledge?
Shoot, I'm glad you had that 48% number. So I think what you're saying, I remember the 4 part. So 48% of our residential buildable land supply is over 5% or more slope, I think is what that 48% was. So that's great. I don't have that number in front of me of the capacity. We can follow up with that. I can tell you that there's about 230 acres of vacant and partially vacant. So there's some development, but it's a larger lot in that area that would benefit from this this service. So we can follow up because we have done that analysis regarding the capacity, because it was part of the information that we developed to get the funding for that area. So we can definitely provide that to you.
What I'm going to want to know moving forward is what percentage of our buildable inventory is still unserved after that project gets done. And then secondly, if we're considering an extraterritorial kind of movement here with regard to the potential, as Matt points out, for the need of a UGB extension, can we do that in harmony with the infrastructure that we're considering for this next year, so that we don't end up adding lands that are simply unserved and unbuildable in that process? In other words, can be quickly served. Can that part be also considered in the UGB consideration? I don't know which staff member I'm asking.
I don't know either. I mean, I know that we're going to have to, sorry, Rebecca, were you about to jump in? Okay. I mean, we are going to have to look at serviceability in general when we look at, if we need to expand, when we look at that as part of one of the things that we zero in on is serviceability. But I can't tell you more than that.
Mike,
I'm just hoping we don't add more.
Mike, I'll give you a second round if you need it. Okay.
All right. I think Rebecca or someone had an answer for that as well. No.
I need a clarifying question, so we can cover that during your second round.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I now have a couple of commissioners in the queue. Commissioner Lear, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a pretty quick follow-up to the line of questioning from Councilor Groves and Chair Edwards about changes to facilitate living wage jobs and the potential to be responsive to job creation opportunities. So I guess this is kind of a general question, not trying to put you on the spot. If there's an opportunity to bring a large employer to town, what would be the possible range of timeline to expect for a larger, more complex? I mean, I'm assuming it would be a metro plan amendment in order to accomplish a rezone. And would that timeline be pretty much prohibitive for any kind of real-time opportunities if an employer comes into the picture? You know, do all these things have to be addressed through larger metro plan amendments, UGB expansion, annexation, or is there any potential to make those changes in a responsive way as opportunities come around?
Thanks for the question. I'll take a first run at it. First, I'll say we routinely or regularly get inquiries from developers, people who are interested in finding a spot to open a business. So that work is definitely ongoing, and it's always a collaboration between the land use team, the community development team, and usually public works. So that work is ongoing. Depending on the needs of a particular business, there might be options for doing something different with a piece of property. But as I think you know, but I'll just say for the general understanding, an urban growth boundary expansion is something that takes a lot of time, a lot of work. It's something we're trying to wrap in on the front end of this project. So we're gathering information. We're doing a complete employment needs analysis, a complete residential needs analysis, so that we can try to anticipate what our needs actually are and build them in to this long-range planning project. That said, we're always meeting with people, seeing what they need on a case-by-case basis and trying to help people find a path to meet their needs.
And just what would you estimate that a larger, more complex rezone metro plan amendment, what kind of timeline were you looking at for that?
That's a good question. And I'm looking a little bit at Alyssa because Gabe's not here and his team handles those site-specific requests. But maybe I would estimate a year or so.
Year or so. And I think in addition to that, it's going to depend on whether or not the property is currently served again. So if it's in the Clear Lake area, it might be the right size. It might even be the right zoning. But then there's the question of services as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Zelenka.
Thank you. And thanks to Commissioner Ramey. Don't forget parking. Can never forget parking. Question about buildable lands. I know the hills are greater than 5% slope, but buildable land in the hills has a maximum slope. Is that number is what, 15%?
30.
It's 30, yeah. And we're not saying that you can't build above 30. We're just saying when we assume future capacity on land, the area that is above 30% slope, we are not assuming that development is going to happen there. We have seen some development above 30% slope, but we are not assuming that.
Yeah, and the cost of doing that is pretty outrageous. So that's not even in the ballpark for affordable housing. Different topic question. If we were to make a shift of our current policy to have the city of Eugene pay for making all of our lands shovel ready with new infrastructure build out, do we have an estimate of the cost of that subsidy and funding mechanism sources and trade-offs as part of our planning efforts? I know we just got a chunk of money from the state for Crow Road, but I suspect that overall adopting that kind of approach would be hundreds of millions of dollars.
It would. What we got for Crow Road was $6 million, and it's anticipated to free up capacity for up to 1,200 homes. The report we did for Clear Lake, what it would take to completely serve the Clear Lake area, is several years old now, but it was a couple $100 million to serve just that area. So the needs are pretty big, and cost estimates are part of the work that's coming forward.
So just to reiterate, could you explain our current policy about unserved lands that are in the buildable inventory? How does that actually get played out? So if someone came in and said, I want to plunk down here, what happens then?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
How does the process of building the infrastructure get paid for? Who does it? How does it get initiated? How long does it take?
Okay. On a response kind of situation where we've got an actual company who wants to build something on a site, that's done on a case-by-case basis. On a long-range planning, that is accounted for in our studies. So we're studying our needs for the 20-year planning horizon and documenting those through urban service analysis and all of the studies that will be coming forward. But that's really the big picture look. And then I guess the other thing I would add is that we work closely with Public Works staff on the capital improvements program and getting projects in there to fund specific areas and specific infrastructure needs.
If a manufacturer wanted to come to a specific lot, who pays for the build out of the infrastructure to get it there so that they can then build?
I think the answer is
I think Matt's going to jump in here.
Okay. Thanks, Matt.
Can't hear you, Matt. Still can't hear you, Matt. Couple more years, we'll get this system down. It'll be awesome.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
Good. New computer. Sorry about that. If you had a lot that wasn't served, our current policy is that the developer of the lot would would pay to extend the infrastructure to that lot to serve it. Now, there are some caveats. If we have in our master plan, for instance, we had planned to put a wastewater extension out to that location, there are potentially credits they could get back for some portion of the extension of that infrastructure, but it would be paid for by the developer.
Right. Otherwise, changing that policy would mean having the city pay for it, and that's the hundreds of millions of dollars to make our shovel-ready lands available, which would be a significant lift and a huge trade-offs for the city of Eugene. Another question on the residential housing numbers. You mentioned that there's two parts to it. One was the need, but then the makeup of lack of housing in the past, especially for affordable housing. How is that actually going to work in this process?
Yeah, so
that's a new part of it.
Yeah, and there's more than two even. So there's still planning for housing needed based on your projected population growth, planning for existing underproduction that is in the community, and that's what you're talking about. How much, based on community members that are here right now, how much housing are we short to house our current community members? How much housing is needed specifically for community members that are experiencing homelessness? And then the demographic piece is another piece we take into consideration. And actually, there's even another one that is smaller and is more relevant probably to areas that have a lot of vacation homes, but that's another thing that needs to be taken into account, like on the coast and in the gorge. So all of those things will add up together to give us our total housing need. And this is something that the state has been hearing about for a long time, is that, you know, just planning for growth is not enough. We have historic underproduction of housing. We've got, you know, homelessness numbers have been increasing over the years. We didn't have a good way of dealing with second homes. And so that's what the state is working on right now, is refining that methodology, which is why we can't give you exact numbers right now. They did a pilot methodology for all of those bins and came up with a number for all of the state and all of the cities and the counties. And then it was like, okay, well, this pilot methodology generally works. They put it out for for comment, they got comment on it. And so now they're working on refining that methodology and the rules that will implement that methodology. So exactly what that's going to look like, we don't have that information yet, but it will be available as of January 1 next year.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah. We desperately need more affordable housing. And as I've been asking this question for years now, and affordable housing without subsidy is close to zero, if not exactly zero. And so zero market-based affordable housing. So at that current pace of our subsidized affordable housing build out, we're never going to even come close to our goals. So I get the question I have is, what can we do in planning to encourage more affordable housing outside of subsidies? And I'll need a round 2 for another question there.
I can start with that because that is something we'll be looking at within the housing production strategy. Heather talked a little bit about the housing need projections that we'll receive. Those will come in income bins as well. So how are we supporting housing production at zero, those very low incomes all the way up through market rate incomes? You're right that it's really hard to build housing that is affordable, even to moderate incomes in Eugene without subsidy. I think a lot of what we're looking at right now is housing types. So what are some of the housing types that can be built at a lower cost? Are those allowed in our various zones? Are we creating barriers that get in the way of building those at a low cost? So looking at barriers, looking at housing types. We're also a part of a partnership with the Chamber and with Homes for Good to look at dialing in on that kind of moderate income range and thinking about who are the developers working in this range. I think Commissioner Edwards referenced this. What would it take to get them to work in Eugene? What are some of the barriers that they see in our code or in our process? And working to take those down through the housing production strategy. So definitely on the table as a part of this suite of work.
Okay, I think it's our turn again. So thank you. I'm going to flip over to Commissioner Isaacson with his hand up.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair and Mayor and City Councilors for this meeting. I found it incredibly productive. I think the staff put together a great presentation, and Commissioner Ramey took one of my questions away. So the last question I had was a question on process. We have a pretty tight schedule for the next 2 years, as we've seen from city requirements and state mandates. And I think that what would be helpful is to just put this out there as a process question. I think it would be advantageous for us to get together more often, especially as we're working on these projects, so that you can have an idea for what the direction the Planning Commission is going, and that way you can give direction and a little bit of feedback and know what we're leading into, as opposed to working on a project for a year or so and then coming back to you with the final completed project. And then if there are misalignments, not being able to necessarily address them. And the second thing would be to, when we do present back to council, to have the opportunity to either do it in a work session where you can ask questions and have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation, as opposed to a 3-minute overview in the middle of a meeting, which doesn't provide you much of an opportunity to hear what the deliberations were going on inside of Planning Commission, and allow you to have a more in-depth understanding of both the issue and what we were deliberating as we kind of go along. So I just wanted to put that out there as an option kind of going forward, because these are going to be some pretty meaty subjects we're going to be doing over the next 2 years.
Okay, well, I appreciate that feedback. So that's something to consider, how we get these two bodies together more frequently. So I have Randy. Were you also looking for a second round, or are you okay?
Thank you, Mayor. I was, but my questions were answered in subsequent questions. So thank you.
Great. So I have Mike and then Alan for second round. So Mike, we're cutting your time down to 1.5 minutes though on this one.
Hopefully that'll work. Thank you, Mayor. I think Rebecca had an answer for me in my question. I don't know if she understood it and I asked it well enough because I was kind of scattered in how I asked it. Are you?
I didn't quite, I didn't,
Okay.
I needed clarification on the question. I picked up on the extraterritorial extension piece, but
Right.
I wasn't, if you could rephrase, that'd be great.
Thank you. My question was, is looking at any potential need for an expansion for residential housing, is there a way to do that in a coordinated and more effective way so that we eliminate bringing in as much what I call phantom inventory in the process when we do it, because we're bringing in lands that are unservable? Is there a way, for example, if we're going to do work in Crow Road, that's great. The Crow Road sub area, would it reach or would it serve that area? I don't know. So.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful.
My question?
Yes. So we can't put in infrastructure in the ground now to serve land that may come in the UGB in the future, but we can do some pre-planning, and we are, with our public works folks. As they do those extensions, they know the urban reserve area that is just adjacent to it.
Right.
We're coordinating and talking about how alignment could or could not serve future areas if they meet the other, analysis needs to come in. So yes, we're certainly looking at serviceability as we're doing it now, to the extent that we can.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping for. I would hate to have us plan as in my opinion, the council made plans in 15 and made decisions on assumptions that contributed to the difficulty today. That's my opinion. And I would like us to make decisions moving forward that would put us in a better position to move forward effectively and quickly. So thank you.
Okay, I will move to Commissioner Beeson.
Thanks. I'm Ken Beeson. I want to say thanks to the staff. First, good afternoon to the mayor and to the councilors, fellow commissioners, to the staff. Thanks to the staff for the presentation and the quality material. I don't come with questions so much. I want to make, I guess, a couple of comments and let you know a few things I'm thinking about as we head into this. I've been on the Planning Commission for 5 years. I can tell you virtually, and it may be obvious looking at the work, pretty much everything we do is leading to housing requirements, land use code, housing needs, so on. And I'm definitely looking forward to this urban growth strategies work. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. It's certainly going to be challenging, and I can say it's definitely a privilege for me to be able to help with it, particularly over the next 3 years. I want to say right now, one of the things, as we kind of came out of the blocks on it, I'm participating in the urban growth community sessions that are going on, and I've been to 2 of those. And there are a number of people involved from the community, and getting a chance to meet and talk with the people out there who are interested in housing and engaged in it, and also pretty knowledgeable about it, has been pretty important and is, I find, pretty helpful. As we go into this, I'm particularly interested in looking inside the urban growth boundary for additional housing capacity. I'm interested in the base zones, particularly R1, particularly C2. What I think of as the C2 with some of the urban area, and that particularly the zones that have allowances for housing, and certainly those 2 are predominant. I'm interested in the technical side as we go through the next year or so, the technical side of the analysis, but also the kind of that public community side of this work. and how we talk about it, how we set up our discussions, and particularly how we, and I know we're looking at this and we're focused on it in community engagement, but how do we talk about it, engage in a way that allows affected constituencies? Certainly interested people are going to come forward and be involved, but how do we get the affected constituencies in to participate and provide their input and their perspective, particularly people who don't currently have housing? So I guess I just kind of wanted to tell you that's sort of the way I'm kind of thinking about it or approaching it as we move through the work. Meetings like this are clearly important, so I can hear your perspective and hear your direction. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you so much. And I have Alan with a second round.
Yeah, thanks. Following up on affordable housing, a couple of years back, we did the housing tools and strategies process. And from my perspective, got hijacked about streamlining the housing development process with the goal of creating more housing, and in particular, more affordable housing. And so we did that. We did a bunch of changes to the way that that process works and streamlined it. But the result was no more affordable housing. And pretty sure that's not the path to make more affordable housing in Eugene. So unless we actually do things very differently, we're not going to get more affordable housing, and we're not going to even come close to meeting our goals and the need. That's just a comment. With regard to unservable that Mike's talking about, so that the money to do that's been the responsibility of developers to move that under the concept that growth should pay for itself, and changing that is a pretty big change in philosophy and concept. And I would caution us about that. Springfield did that several years back, where they put in the pre-development infrastructure for housing, and it ended up being a disaster, and it didn't pay off for literally decades. And so I think we need to be very, very careful about doing that and going down that path. One last question. What's the multifamily, single family split right now? What is it projected to be through this process?
We are not at that point yet where we're talking about the housing type split. We need to have more information, which we're going through right now, regarding the income levels, price points that we're looking at when we take that new need and split it out. So we're not there yet.
All right. I've got Commissioner Bailing in the queue. Go ahead, Diane.
Thank you. Thank you all for this meeting and the information. I very much appreciate it. I would like to underscore my agreement with Councilor Zelenka's concern about the lack of affordable housing actually coming about, and all that Commissioner Beeson was underscoring about the process. I live in Ward 6 out toward the west, which has so far been a more affordable part of Eugene. And 3 families with young children in the last 6 months have moved away because they can't afford to stay. I'm concerned about reality therapy here, where the rubber meets the road. It's wonderful. We've got all these studies that are going to get done, and we'll have a submission by 2026. And I'm concerned about what obstacles might be in place that are not allowing us to get some of this done in more rapidly, sooner. I mean, there is such a need. And the families I interact with in my neighborhood aren't coming to these lovely meetings that you're doing because they can barely handle getting the 3 kids picked up from school and the lunches made and the shopping done and the house taken care of and all that, if they're lucky enough to have a house. So there is a gap. There is a gap. I love the planning we're doing. I love that Oregon is leading the way. And yet there is a gap and I think we need some reality therapy. I don't know if it's walking around the neighborhoods or what exactly, but I'm thrilled that my house value has gone up so much, and yet that prices everybody else out of the market. It's a catch-22, and I think we need to do more and we need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any counselors who haven't had, we have just a couple of minutes left, so are there any counselors who didn't take a first crack at this? The floor is open. Counselor Semple.
I don't really have a lot of comments or concerns at this point. It's huge projects that we need to do. And I agree the affordable housing is a crisis and beyond. But I do want to say thanks for the community outreach. I know it's difficult to connect and we miss different segments because they don't have time. But without that outreach, we wouldn't have any of it. So I've noticed while I've been counselor that our outreach has increased, and I like that. So I'm glad to see it continuing. A lot of work coming ahead. So thank you.
Great. And I will ask the same of any remaining commissioners who either would like a second round or have any comments to add that they maybe didn't get an opportunity. You can raise your, Commissioner Fragala, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Edwards. So I wanted to thank the City Council and the mayor, as well as all of the city staff for this opportunity. There was a lot of really valuable information provided. I too share the concerns about affordable housing and don't believe it only to be a concern about subsidized affordable housing for our low-income neighbors, but there's a workforce affordability that is really becoming very dramatic for our median income neighbors. And that is another issue that is going to contribute to our ability to have a strong local economy. So I hope we can ensure to look at that. And my question is around where do we have room for innovation in this process? Because I really believe that Eugene is a place of great innovation. We have things like Cahoots. We have the community-supported shelters. We have Square One Village. And I do think it's going to require thinking outside of the box, as well as all of the really good work that we're doing. And so I'd be curious to see where in the process we will be able to build in innovative approaches.
Yeah, thank you. Looks like Councilor Leach.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for everyone in this room. I've really enjoyed learning more today and this discussion. I wanted to just thank Commissioner Isaacson for bringing up the process question. I think it will be really important throughout this process to hear more from the commission and make sure that we have that alignment. And I'd be interested as well in learning more about what the requirements for engagement will be specifically to the commission and how we can support that or guide that in some way as we start to reach out to the community. So again, thank you for everyone and all of the good discussion.
Tiffany, it looks like, are we closing out with planning commissioners? I just want to make one comment, but if there's another comment from planning commission, I'll hold.
Okay. I'm looking for hands. So go ahead, Mayor.
Well, I wanted to thank everyone for this conversation. This is really, really an interesting meeting and really interesting questions and great responses from the staff. So I just appreciate that work. And this is not exactly this is not the moment to answer this question, but you are doing an employment kind of larger employment study. And just to remind everyone that not all employment that we need is manufacturing, and that there are. And so I will be interested in, as we look at that, about how much of the employment we have is comes in the efficiencies in terms of, we think of the needs that we have in the healthcare industry for people. We think of social work needs that we have, that there are employers, there are training programs, and we have empty office space. So I'm also interested in that looking at the employment efficiencies, like how do we attract the employers who actually want to work out of the spaces that we currently have, as well as needing to expand our industrial lands, because that could happen faster than investing in the infrastructure.
Okay.
So if there are no other questions, we are just right on time. And so I will thank you all and close out this work session of the City Council and turn to Commissioner Edwards.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor Vinis. And I just want to say that, there's some questions out there. These are really great. You also have some good private sector partners who are really engaged in housing. And I know most of you know that, but with that, I will go ahead and thank everybody for their participation. And I'm going to end the meeting of the Eugene Planning Commission as well.